Captain Daniel Price stood on the observation deck of Defense Station Sentinel-7, watching the distant flashes of light that marked another battle in the endless war. Each bright spark represented ships exploding, lives ending, civilizations bleeding. He had watched this same scene play out for 15 years now, ever since the Velkari Dominion and the Thracian Collective had started tearing each other apart across the galaxy. Earth had stayed out of it. That was the official policy, repeated endlessly by politicians and news broadcasts back home. Humanity would remain neutral. They would fortify their own solar system, build their defenses, and let the aliens destroy themselves. It was the smart play, everyone agreed. Why join a war that had nothing to do with Earth? Daniel took a sip of his coffee and pulled up the tactical display. The battle was moving closer to human space again. Not close enough to be a real threat, but close enough to make him nervous. The Velkari ships were massive things, all sharp angles and dark metal. The Thracian vessels looked organic, like giant sea creatures swimming through the void. Both sides had weapons that could crack planets open like eggs. "Captain, we're receiving another distress call," Lieutenant Amy Brooks said from her station. She was young, only 24, and still got uncomfortable when ships died within scanner range. A Velkari cargo vessel. "They're asking for assistance." "Log it and ignore it," Daniel replied. It was the same answer he always gave. Earth helped to no one in this war. "Send them the standard neutral response." Amy nodded and turned back to her console. Daniel knew what the message said by heart. It was polite but firm. Earth was a neutral party and could not provide military assistance to either side. For medical emergencies involving civilian vessels, they could dock at designated stations only, no exceptions. The truth was more complicated than the official policy suggested. Daniel had been stationed out here long enough to see the pattern. Earth sold technology to both sides. Nothing too powerful, nothing that could tip the balance. Medical supplies, basic shield generators, communication equipment, always the same to both factions, always at premium prices. Humanity was making a fortune from this war. Dr. Lisa Morgan arrived on the observation deck carrying a datapad and looking worried. She was the station's chief xenobiologist and the person who handled all diplomatic communications with alien species. At 42, she had spent her entire adult life studying the Velkari and Thracians, learning their languages and cultures. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "I just decoded 2 messages. One from the Velkari, one from the Thracian. Both of them are warnings." Daniel turned away from the window. "What kind of warnings?" "Both sides are telling us not to trust the other. The Velkari claim the Thracians are planning something big, and that Earth should align with them for protection. The Thracians say the exact same thing about the Velkari." Lisa set her datapad down on the tactical table. "This is new. Usually they just want to buy supplies or complain about treaty violations. Maybe they're both getting desperate," Daniel suggested. "The war has been going on a long time. Resources must be running low." "Or maybe they're both planning something," Lisa countered. "Daniel, what if one of them decides that Earth is helping their enemy? We've been selling to both sides equally. What if they see that as taking sides? Then we explain the truth. We're neutral. We sell to everyone." Daniel tried to sound confident, but Lisa's concern was starting to infect him. "The United Nations has been clear about this. As long as we treat both sides the same, we're safe." Lisa didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue further. She collected her datapad and headed back to her lab, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts and the distant war. Back on Earth, Admiral Henry Blake was having similar concerns. He stood in the command center of the United Nations Space Command, reviewing defense reports and not liking what he saw. At 60 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for a war that had never come. Earth's military was strong, well-trained, and equipped with good technology, but compared to the forces the Velkari and Thracians could field, humanity was barely a minor power. "Admiral, the Security Council is asking for your assessment again," his aide said. "They want to know if we should increase our defensive posture." "Tell them what I told them last week," Blake replied. "We maintain current readiness levels. We continue to fortify the outer system, and we stay the hell out of their war." But privately, Blake was worried. He had studied every battle report that came through human space. Both alien factions were suffering massive casualties, but neither side seemed close to winning. Wars like that didn't end peacefully. They ended when one side found a new weapon, a new ally, or a new target. On Sentinel-7, Daniel watched as a massive Velkari battle group engaged a Thracian fleet near a gas giant. The battle was spectacular and terrible. Beams of energy crossed the void, missiles streaked between ships, and explosions bloomed like flowers. Then something new happened. The Thracians deployed a weapon Daniel had never seen before. A wave of distortion rippled through space, and when it passed over the Velkari ships, they simply came apart. Not exploded, not destroyed by energy beams. They broke into pieces like old toys falling apart. Dozens of massive warships reduced to debris in seconds. Did you see that? Amy asked, her voice shaking. What was that? I don't know, Daniel said quietly. But record everything. Send a copy to Earth Command immediately. The Thracian fleet didn't pursue the survivors. They simply collected their own damaged ships and withdrew. It was almost casual, like they were testing the weapon to see if it worked. The message was clear. The Thracians had just changed the rules of the war. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about those Velkari ships breaking apart, about the new weapon, about Lisa's warnings. Earth had played it safe for 15 years, growing rich while staying neutral. But neutrality only worked as long as both sides accepted it. He pulled up the long-range scanners and studied the patterns of ship movements. Something felt wrong. The Velkari and Thracian fleets were repositioning, but not toward each other. They were spreading out, moving into new formations that didn't make tactical sense for fighting each other. On Earth, in the halls of the United Nations, President Helen Carter addressed the General Assembly. She spoke of humanity's continued commitment to peace, to neutrality, to staying out of conflicts that didn't concern them. The representatives applauded. The news networks praised her wisdom. Everyone agreed that Earth was safe. But out in the dark between stars, Daniel Price watched the alien fleets move and felt certain that everything was about to change. Neutrality was a choice humanity had made. But soon, very soon, that choice might be taken away from them. The war had been distant for so long that Earth had forgotten a simple truth. In war, no one stays neutral forever. Commander Jake Sullivan had been an intelligence officer for 12 years, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. He sat in the secure communications room deep inside Earth's orbital intelligence station, staring at the message that had just come through. The Velkari and Thracians had stopped fighting each other. After 15 years of brutal warfare, both sides had suddenly established an emergency communication channel. Not to negotiate peace, but to talk about Earth. Jake replayed the intercepted transmission again. The Velkari ambassador's voice was cold and accusatory. The Thracian commander sounded equally angry. Both were saying the same thing from different perspectives. Earth had betrayed them. "Get me President Carter," Jake said to his communications officer. "Priority Alpha, right now." 10 minutes later, President Helen Carter appeared on his screen. She looked tired. The past few weeks had been filled with strange reports from the frontier, and now this. "Commander Sullivan, what's so urgent that you're using emergency protocols?" "Madam President, both the Velkari Dominion and the Thracian Collective are accusing us of treason. They claim we've been secretly helping their enemy." Jake sent her the files. "The Velkari say we provided advanced shield technology to the Thracians. The Thracians claim we gave targeting data and weapon specifications to the Velkari." Carter's face went pale as she reviewed the information. "That's impossible. We've sold the same basic technology to both sides. Everything was approved. Everything was documented. We've been scrupulously neutral." "I know, ma'am. But someone has convinced both sides that we've been playing them. And here's the worst news. They're forming a temporary alliance. Both fleets are moving toward our space. They're demanding that we surrender and submit to investigation." "Surrender?" Carter's voice rose. "Earth hasn't surrendered to anyone in centuries. We're a sovereign world. They don't care. They want access to all our records, all our technology, all our communications. They want to put humanity on trial." Jake pulled up a tactical map. "And they're giving us 72 hours to comply, or they're coming in by force." The next day, the United Nations convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to discuss the crisis. Admiral Blake presented the military situation, and it wasn't good. Combined, the Velkari and Thracian fleets represent over 300 capital ships. Blake explained. Earth has 47 major warships, most designed for defense rather than offensive operations. If they attack together, we can't win a conventional engagement. Can we prove we're innocent? Asked the representative from Brazil. Show them our records, prove we only sold basic technology? Dr. Lisa Morgan stood up. She had been brought from Sentinel-7 specifically for this meeting. I've been reviewing the accusations. Someone has been selling advanced technology to both sides under false credentials. They used fake human signatures, forged documents, everything designed to look like it came from Earth. Who would do this? Carter asked. Who benefits from turning both sides against us? I don't know yet, Lisa admitted. But whoever they are, they know our systems, our protocols, our diplomatic procedures. This wasn't a simple frame job. Someone has been planning this for years. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was flying a patrol route near Jupiter when her sensors picked up unknown contacts. 3 ships, not Valkyrie or Thracian. The design was completely new, sleek and predatory. Before she could react, one of them locked weapons on her fighter. This is Earth Defense Patrol 77 to unknown vessels, Amy transmitted. You are in restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately. The response came in perfect English, but the voice was clearly not human. Foolish child. You still don't understand what's happening. Your species was always going to die. We simply accelerated the timeline. Amy's fighter shook as energy beams passed close enough to disrupt her shields. She threw her ship into evasive maneuvers, heading back toward the inner system at maximum speed. Behind her, the unknown ships pursued for several minutes before breaking off. She made it back to the nearest defense station with her fighter's hull scorched and her hands shaking. The recording of the alien transmission was sent immediately to Earth Command. Jake Sullivan analyzed the new ships and felt a cold certainty settle over him. He had been studying the evidence of the frame job for hours, and now pieces were falling into place. He contacted Dr. Morgan directly. I need you to look at something, he said. The technology that was sold to the Valkyrie and Thracians under our name. It's too advanced to be ours, but it's made to look human. What if a third party has been manipulating this entire war? Lisa pulled up the technical specifications. Her eyes widened as she studied them. These shield generators use principles we haven't even theorized yet. And look at this. The power systems are based on exotic matter manipulation. Jake, this isn't human technology at all. Someone just made it look human. Then who? The answer came 12 hours later when a message broadcast across every channel in human space. The signal was powerful, overwhelming everything else. On every screen, every display, every communication device, the same image appeared. The alien was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer between colors. Its face was almost human, but wrong in subtle ways that made people uncomfortable to look at. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that hurt to hear. Humans of Earth, I am Counselor Vex of the Zorathi Ascendancy. For 15 years, we have orchestrated the war between the Valkyrie and Thracians. We have guided their conflict, sustained their hatred, and ensured they would destroy each other's strength. Now, with both sides weakened, we have given them a final gift. You. The image shifted to show recordings of Zorathi agents wearing human disguises, selling weapons to both sides. Your species was always an inconvenience. Young, aggressive, unpredictable. We decided to solve multiple problems at once. The Valkyrie and Thracians will destroy you, weakening themselves further in the process. Then the Zorathi will rule this entire sector. President Carter stood in the command center, surrounded by her advisors, watching the broadcast with growing horror and anger. How many ships do they have? She asked Admiral Blake. We don't know. The unknown vessels that attacked Lieutenant Brooks are Zorathi, we think, but we have no intelligence on their full strength. Blake pulled up tactical displays. What we do know is this. In 48 hours, the combined Valkyrie and Thracian fleet will reach Mars. They're not listening to our attempts at communication. The Zorathi broadcast has convinced them we're guilty. Then we prove we're innocent, Carter said. We capture Zorathi operatives, we show both sides the truth. And if they don't believe us? Someone asked. Carter's jaw set in a hard line. Then we make them believe us. Admiral, begin implementing Defense Protocol Omega. Mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier. If they want to attack Earth, they're going to learn why humanity has survived every threat we've ever faced. General Paul Harris was already moving troops into position around the solar system. Marines boarded defense stations, pilots ran to their fighters, and weapon systems that had been dormant for years hummed to life. Earth had stayed out of the war, had tried to remain peaceful and neutral. That time was over. The galaxy had chosen to make humanity their enemy, and now Earth would show them what a mistake that was. On Sentinel-7, Captain Daniel Price watched the incoming fleet and felt a strange calm settle over him. He had known this was coming, had felt it in his bones. The time for watching was over. Now came the time for fighting. All hands, battle stations, he said quietly. This is not a drill. Prepare for contact in 48 hours. Earth had stayed out of the war, but the war had come to Earth anyway. Dr. Kevin Zhang hadn't slept in 36 hours. He stood in the secure research facility beneath the lunar surface, watching his life's work being loaded onto military transports. For 10 years he had been developing weapons in secret, technology that Earth officially didn't possess. The politicians had wanted plausible deniability. They got to claim humanity was peaceful while scientists like Kevin prepared for the day when peace wouldn't be enough. The gravitational lance is ready for installation. He reported to Admiral Blake over the secure channel. We have 6 units operational, another 12 that can be ready in 24 hours. What exactly does this weapon do? Blake asked. Kevin pulled up a simulation. It creates a focused beam of gravitational distortion. Anything caught in the beam experiences crushing force equivalent to being near a black hole's event horizon. Ships, missiles, anything physical gets compressed to the size of a marble. And you've tested this? On asteroids, yes, it works. But Admiral, these weapons draw enormous power. Each shot will drain a ship's reactor for several minutes. We get maybe 3 or 4 shots before we need to recharge. Better than nothing, Blake said. Get them installed on the Defiance and whatever other ships can handle the power requirements. The Defiance was Earth's secret. While humanity had publicly maintained a defensive fleet of standard warships, they had been building something else. Captain Nicole Wright stood on the bridge of the experimental vessel, running final systems checks. The ship was smaller than a Velkari battleship, but packed with technology no alien race knew humans possessed. Nicole was 38, a career officer who had trained her entire adult life for combat. She never thought would come. Now it was here and she felt ready. Engineering, status report, she called out. Quantum shields at full capacity, came the response. Gravitational lances charged and ready. Fusion drives showing green across the board. Captain, we're ready to fight. Good. Because in 18 hours, we're going to show these aliens what Earth builds when we stop being polite. General Paul Harris coordinated the defense from the command center on Earth. He had divided the solar system into tactical zones, placing military assets where they would do the most good. The asteroid belt would serve as a defensive line, a maze of rocks and hidden weapons platforms. Mars and its moons held the bulk of Earth's conventional fleet. And near Jupiter, specialized units waited to execute maneuvers the aliens wouldn't expect. Sir, we're receiving a final demand from the Velkari, an officer reported. They want us to power down all defensive systems and prepare to receive boarding parties. Send them our response, Harris said calmly. He had prepared this message hours ago, knowing it would be needed. The message was simple and broadcast in every language the Velkari and Thracians understood. Earth is a sovereign world. We have committed no crime. We will defend ourselves. If you attack, you will pay a price you cannot imagine. This is your only warning. The Velkari commander read the human message and dismissed it. These primitives had no idea what real military power looked like. His fleet numbered over 200 ships, the Thracian force slightly smaller. Together they would crush Earth's defenses in hours, capture their leadership and execute them for war crimes. The Thracian fleet admiral had similar thoughts. Humans were clever, perhaps even dangerous given time to develop, but they were young, inexperienced in real war. This would be a simple punitive expedition. Both commanders were about to learn that humanity's 15 years of neutrality hadn't been spent idle. The first contact came near Mars. A Velkari scouting group of 12 ships encountered an Earth patrol of 3 vessels. The Velkari commander expected immediate surrender. Instead, the human ships opened fire with weapons that shouldn't exist. The gravitational lances reached out, invisible and unstoppable. 2 Velkari ships crumpled like paper, their hulls crushed into dense spheres of metal and organic matter. The third human ship launched missiles that moved faster than anything the Velkari had seen, weaving through point defense fire and detonating with antimatter warheads. In 15 seconds, 8 Velkari ships were destroyed. The survivors retreated in shock, transmitting frantic reports about human capabilities. Captain Wright brought the Defiance into the fray with confidence. Her crew was small, only 80 people, but every one of them was the best Earth could produce. "Target the Thracian cruiser," she ordered. "Fire Lance 1." The gravitational weapon discharged and space itself seemed to twist. The Thracian cruiser tried to evade, but the beam tracked it perfectly. The ship's organic hull compressed, rupturing from the inside as gravitational forces exceeded what any structure could withstand. The cruiser died screaming on every radio frequency. "Lance recharging," reported the weapons officer. 3 minutes to next shot. Understood. Helm evasive pattern Delta. "Keep us moving." Nicole watched the tactical display as more alien ships entered the battle. "This is going to get messy." On Sentinel-7, Captain Daniel Price coordinated defense station operations while watching the largest space battle in human history unfold. Earth's forces were outnumbered 5-1, but they were fighting on home ground with weapons the enemy didn't understand. "Station railguns are firing," Lieutenant Amy Brooks reported. She was now his tactical officer. Promoted in the field as experienced personnel became precious. "We're targeting Velkari destroyers at maximum range." The railguns were old technology, but Earth had perfected them. Solid metal slugs accelerated to a fraction of light speed, crossed the void, and punched through alien shields like they weren't there. Ships exploded as the kinetic projectiles tore through their hulls. But the aliens were adapting. The Velkari began using smaller ships as screens, absorbing the railgun fire while their heavy ships advanced. The Thracians deployed their organic mines, living creatures that latched onto human vessels and tried to eat through the hulls. Major Chris Bennett led his Marine unit in desperate fighting aboard a compromised defense platform. The Thracian mines had breached the hull, and now his troops fought the creatures in the corridors. "Fall back to Section 7, he ordered, firing his plasma rifle at a mine that had grown legs and claws. "Seal the bulkheads behind us." The mine shrieked and died, but 3 more were pushing through the breach. Chris armed a demolition charge and threw it. "Fire in the hole." The explosion sealed the corridor, but it also compromised the station's structural integrity. "All personnel abandon platform Delta 9, came the evacuation order. "Repeat, abandon platform." Chris and his Marines made it to the escape pods with seconds to spare. As they launched, he watched the platform come apart under sustained Velkari fire. 23 people had died defending that position. How many more would die before this was over? Dr. Zhang worked frantically to bring more gravitational lances online. The weapons were proving devastating, but they weren't enough. Earth needed something bigger, something that could turn the tide decisively. "What if we link multiple lances together?" suggested one of his engineers, a young woman named Carla Hughes. "Create a sustained gravitational field instead of pulses." "The power requirements would be insane," Kevin replied. But he was already running calculations. "We'd need to strip the reactors from 3 ships to power 1 weapon. And the field would probably tear apart whatever ship we mounted it on. Then we don't mount it on a ship. We build a platform, anchor it to a moon or asteroid, make it stationary but devastating." Kevin looked at her calculations and felt hope for the first time in hours. "Get me Admiral Blake, we might have something." The Battle of Mars raged for 6 hours straight. Earth lost 23 ships and 11 major defensive platforms. But the aliens lost nearly 80 vessels and their advance had been stopped cold. The survivors pulled back to regroup, and for a brief moment there was quiet. President Carter addressed Earth from the command center, her face appearing on every screen across the planet. "Citizens of Earth, we are at war. This is not a war we chose, not a war we wanted. But it is a war we will win. The aliens came to our home believing we were weak, believing we were guilty of crimes we didn't commit. They are learning the truth. Humanity is neither weak nor guilty. We are survivors, we are fighters, and we will not surrender." On the Defiance, Captain Wright reviewed damage reports. Her ship had taken hits, but the quantum shields had held. 3 of her crew were dead, another 7 wounded. But they had personally destroyed 8 alien vessels. "Captain, we're receiving a tight beam transmission," her communications officer said. "It's from Admiral Blake, eyes only." Nicole read the message and felt her blood run cold. Intelligence had identified Zarathi vessels hiding in the outer system, cloaked and watching the battle. They were analyzing Earth's capabilities, learning how humans fought, and when both sides were weak enough, the Zarathi would strike. "Plot a course to these coordinates," she ordered, sending the locations to her helm officer. "We're going hunting." The war had just begun and already Earth had paid a terrible price. But humanity was adapting, learning, fighting with everything they had. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They had given Earth an enemy to unite against, and now the full fury of humanity was being unleashed. Lieutenant Sam Rivera stared at the tactical display and saw something nobody else had noticed. The Velkari and Thracian fleets were fighting together, but they weren't really coordinated. Their communication protocols were different, their tactical doctrines incompatible. They were two forces fighting side by side, not one unified army. "Admiral Blake, I have something," Sam transmitted from his position aboard the defense cruiser Atlantic. "The aliens have a coordination gap. The Velkari use quantum encryption for fleet commands. The Thracians use bio-neural networks. There's a 3 to 7 second delay when they try to coordinate actions." Blake's image appeared on Sam's screen. "How do we exploit that?" "Hit them at the coordination points. Force them to make snap decisions together. They'll stumble over each other trying to respond." Sam highlighted specific areas on the tactical map. "If we strike here and here simultaneously, they'll have to coordinate a response. That delay could give us an advantage, and do it. Send your plan to all fleet commanders." Captain Nicole Wright piloted the Defiance toward the coordinates where Zarathi vessels had been detected. Her ship moved silently. All non-essential systems powered down to minimize their sensor signature. If the Zarathi were watching the main battle, maybe she could get close enough for a decisive strike. "Contact," whispered her sensor officer. 3 vessels, configuration matches the ships that attacked Lieutenant Brooks. They're holding position, completely passive, just watching. Range to target, 80,000 kilometers and closing. Nicole made her decision. "All hands, battle stations. Charge all gravitational lances. When we fire everything at once. We won't get a second chance." The Defiance crept closer. 70,000 kilometers. 60,000. The Zarathi ships remained still, their attention focused on the distant battle near Mars. They were recording everything, analyzing human tactics and weapons. They didn't know death was approaching. 50,000 kilometers, the helm officer reported. "Fire," Nicole said calmly. 3 gravitational lances discharged simultaneously. Space twisted, and the Zarathi vessels never knew what hit them. 2 ships crumpled instantly, crushed into dense spheres. The third tried to evade, its exotic engines flaring to life. Nicole's crew was ready. Fire missiles, full spread. Antimatter warheads crossed the distance in seconds. The Zarathi ship's shields flared and died. And then the missile struck home. The explosion was brilliant, lighting up the dark like a newborn star. "Target destroyed," the weapons officer confirmed. "All 3 Zarathi vessels eliminated." "Good, now get us back to the fleet. We need to share what we learned about their technology." Nicole allowed herself a small smile. "And we need to show Admiral Blake that the Zarathi can die just like anyone else." Major Chris Bennett's Marines were boarding a damaged Velkari command ship. The vessel had been crippled by railgun fire and was drifting, unable to maneuver. Chris's mission was simple: get inside, access their computer systems, and download everything they could about the Zarathi frame job. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1, called his demolition specialist. The shaped charge blew a hole in the Velkari hull, and Chris led his team inside. The interior of the alien ship was dark and filled with acrid smoke. Emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows. Chris's helmet display showed life signs ahead. Velkari crew members who had survived the damage. "Non-lethal if possible," Chris ordered. "We need them alive to verify what we find." They moved through the ship, encountering minimal resistance. Most of the Velkari were injured, focused on survival rather than fighting. Chris's team reached the command center and found 3 Velkari officers trying to destroy their computer core. "Stop," Chris commanded, his rifle trained on them. "We're not here to kill you. We're here to prove Earth is innocent." The Velkari commander was tall and proud, even wounded. "Humans lie. You sold weapons to our enemies." "No, we didn't. The Zarathi did, pretending to be us." Chris gestured to his tech specialist. "We're going to prove it. You can watch." Dr. Emma Walsh worked from Earth's Intelligence Center, breaking Zarathi encryption codes. She had been a cryptographer for 15 years, but she had never encountered anything like this. The Zarathi used quantum-entangled particles for communication, making their signals nearly impossible to intercept or decode. Nearly, but not completely. Emma had found a flaw in their system, a tiny window of vulnerability when messages were being encoded. It took enormous computing power to exploit, but Earth's quantum computers were finally cracking through. "I'm in," she announced, her voice shaking with exhaustion and excitement. "I have access to Zarathi communications." Admiral Blake was at her station in minutes. "What are they saying?" Emma played back the intercepted messages. The Zarathi were coordinating their manipulation of both sides, tracking the battle's progress and preparing for their final move. But more importantly, there were messages about the frame job itself. Complete records of Zarathi agents posing as humans, selling weapons, forging documents. "This is it," Blake said. "This is the proof we need. Broadcast it. Every channel, every frequency. Both sides need to see this." Emma's hands flew across her keyboard. Within minutes, the intercepted Zarathi communications were broadcasting across the entire battle zone. Every ship, Velkari, Thracian, and human, received the same message. Proof that the Zarathi had orchestrated everything. On the Velkari command ship, the officers watched the broadcast with growing horror. Chris Bennett saw their expressions change from hatred to confusion to dawning realization. "The humans speak truth," one of the Velkari finally said. "We have been deceived." Chris's tech specialist finished downloading the ship's records. "Sir, their files confirm it. They have transaction records for weapons they bought from humans, but the digital signatures are forged. The Zarathi didn't even do a good job. The Velkari just wanted to believe humans were guilty." The Velkari commander looked at Chris with what might have been shame. "We have killed your people for a lie." "Yes," Chris said flatly, "and our people have killed yours. The question is, what do we do now? Keep killing each other while the Zarathi watch? Or do we stop and deal with the real enemy?" The Battle of Mars had paused. Not because either side surrendered, but because both alien fleets had received the Zarathi communications. Confusion rippled through their ranks as commanders tried to process the implications. Lieutenant Sam Rivera seized the moment. "All ships, cease fire but maintain defensive positions. Open a channel to the Velkari and Thracian command ships." The channel crackled to life. For the first time, human, Velkari, and Thracian commanders were speaking directly to each other without shooting. "This is Admiral Blake of Earth Defense Forces. We did not betray either of you. The Zarathi manipulated all three of our civilizations, trying to weaken us so they could conquer this sector. The proof is irrefutable. The question now is whether we continue their plan by destroying each other, or whether we unite against them." There was a long silence. Then the Velkari fleet commander responded. "How do we know this isn't another human deception?" "Because we're offering something no deceiver would," Blake replied. "Access to all our records, all our technology sales, everything. Let your own analysts verify the truth. And while they do that, let's establish a ceasefire. If we're wrong, you can always resume attacking later. But if we're right, every minute we fight each other is a minute the Zarathi get stronger." The Thracian admiral spoke next, his translated voice heavy with suspicion. "And if we agree to this ceasefire?" "What then?" "Then we find where the Zarathi are hiding," Blake said, "and we make them pay for what they've done to all of us." Captain Wright returned to the fleet with the wreckage of 3 Zarathi ships in tow. Her crew had pulled what was left of their technology from the debris field, and Earth scientists were already analyzing it. "The Zarathi are good," Dr. Zhang reported after examining the wreckage. "Their technology is significantly more advanced than ours or the Velkari or Thracians. But it's not invincible. Their ships rely heavily on cloaking systems and energy shields. Our gravitational weapons bypass both." "How many ships do they have?" Blake asked. "Unknown, but based on the power signatures from these wrecks, I'd guess they have at least 100 capital ships. Maybe more." Zhang pulled up his analysis. "They've been watching this sector for decades, slowly positioning themselves. This war between the Velkari and Thracians? The Zarathi probably started it, just like they tried to start one with us. President Carter made the decision that would define humanity's role in the galaxy. She authorized a formal military alliance proposal to both the Velkari and Thracians. Earth would share intelligence, coordinate attacks, and hunt down the Zarathi together. This is a risk, her advisors warned. We don't know if we can trust them." "We don't have to trust them," Carter replied. "We just need them to hate the Zarathi more than they hate us. And right now, after being manipulated for 15 years, I think they do." The responses came within hours. Both alien factions agreed to a temporary alliance. Not friendship, not forgiveness, but a mutual recognition that the Zarathi were the greater threat. Major Chris Bennett stood on the bridge of the Velkari command ship as it limped back toward the Allied fleet. The Velkari commander had agreed. Ambassador Richard Cole had spent his career negotiating trade deals and treaty disputes. Nothing had prepared him for this. Sitting in a room with Velkari and Thracian diplomats, trying to forge an alliance between three species that had been killing each other days ago. Earth will contribute 70 ships to the joint fleet, he said, reviewing the latest proposal. We'll also share our gravitational weapons technology under strict usage agreements. In exchange, we want guaranteed recognition of Earth's sovereignty and borders after the Zorathi are defeated. The Velkari diplomat, a female named Kestrin, studied the proposal with her large dark eyes. Your weapons technology is impressive but limited in scope. What else can humanity offer? Creativity, Richard replied. Your people have been fighting the same way for 15 years. The Thracians too. Both sides are locked into tactical doctrines that the Zorathi have already analyzed and countered. Humans think differently. We adapt faster. You need that. The Thracian representative, Ambassador Vorath, made a sound that the translator interpreted as thoughtful consideration. The human speaks truth. Your people's unconventional tactics surprised us. They will surprise the Zorathi as well. Then we have an agreement? Richard asked. Kestrin was silent for a long moment. Earth will have its sovereignty. But know this, Ambassador. If humans betray this alliance, both our species will unite to destroy yours completely. Fair enough, Richard said, extending his hand. Because if either of you betrays us, we'll do the same. They sealed the agreement with what passed for handshakes in their respective cultures. It wasn't friendship, but it was a beginning. Fleet Admiral Karen Bell stood in the command center of the newly formed Allied Space Command. She was 52 years old and had never commanded anything larger than Earth's home fleet. Now she was coordinating 3 different species militaries, each with their own procedures and traditions. The Zorathi fortress has been located, reported the intelligence officer, a young man named Peter Grant. It's hidden in the Veil Nebula, approximately 70 light-years from Earth. Heavy gravitational distortions and radiation make direct observation difficult. But we've confirmed at least 80 Zorathi ships in the area. Karen studied the tactical map. The Veil Nebula was dense with gas and dust, making it perfect for hiding a base. It would also make fighting there extremely difficult. What's our fleet strength? 247 ships total. 93 Velkari, 82 Thracian, 72 human. We're organized into mixed task forces to maximize coordination. Not enough, Karen muttered. If they have 80 ships defending the fortress, they probably have reinforcements hidden nearby. Then we use the element of surprise, suggested her tactical advisor. Hit them hard and fast before they can fully mobilize. Karen made her decision. Contact all task force commanders. We move in 12 hours. And get me Captain Price. I have a special mission for him. Captain Daniel Price received his orders aboard the defense cruiser Guardian. He was being assigned to lead a combined strike team. 20 ships, mixing human, Velkari, and Thracian vessels. Their mission was to penetrate the Zorathi fortress and destroy its power core. You'll be going in first, Admiral Bell explained, drawing their attention while the main fleet engages their defensive perimeter. It's going to be extremely dangerous. When has that ever stopped us? Daniel replied. He looked at his mixed crew, humans working alongside aliens who had been enemies a week ago. We'll get it done. Lieutenant Amy Brooks was assigned to Daniel's strike team as a fighter squadron leader. She would be commanding a mixed wing of human, Velkari, and Thracian fighters, trying to keep them working together in the chaos of combat. Remember, our Velkari allies prefer precise, coordinated strikes, she told her pilots during the briefing. The Thracians like aggressive, close-range attacks. We need to blend both styles. Stay flexible, watch each other's backs, and don't assume anyone else knows what you're thinking. One of the Velkari fighter pilots spoke up. Lieutenant Brooks, our people killed many humans. How can you work with us? Amy looked at the alien pilot, seeing genuine concern in those large eyes. Because right now we have a common enemy. Later maybe we can figure out peace, but first we have to survive. Dr. Kevin Zhang was making final modifications to a weapon that terrified him. He had linked 6 gravitational lances together, creating a sustained field generator powerful enough to collapse a small moon. The weapon was mounted on a mobile platform, powered by reactors stripped from 3 damaged ships. This thing is barely stable, warned Carla Hughes. If the containment fails, we could create a gravitational singularity. Then don't let it fail, Kevin said. We need something that can crack open that fortress. This is our best shot. The weapon was codenamed Project Hammer, and it would be deployed by a volunteer crew who understood they might not survive its use. The Allied fleet jumped into the Veil Nebula and immediately came under attack. Zarathi ships emerged from the gas clouds, their weapons blazing. But this time they faced an enemy that knew they were coming. Fleet Admiral Bell coordinated the defense from her command ship. All task forces execute dispersal pattern Omega. Don't let them concentrate fire on any single group. The Allied fleet scattered into predetermined formations, forcing the Zarathi to divide their attention. Human ships used their speed and agility to draw fire while Velkari vessels provided long-range support. Thracian ships charged into close range, their organic weapons devastating at short distances. Captain Daniel Price led his strike team through the chaos, heading straight for the fortress. The massive structure loomed ahead, a twisted amalgamation of technology and strange architecture. Energy shields covered its surface and weapons platforms tracked their approach. All ships focus fire on Grid Section 7, Daniel ordered. We need to punch through those shields. Gravitational lances, particle beams, and plasma torpedoes converged on a single point. The Zarathi shields flickered and held. Then Project Hammer fired. The sustained gravitational field reached out and touched the shields. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then the shields began to collapse inward, crushed by artificial gravity. A hole opened in the fortress's defenses. All fighters through the gap now, Amy Brooks shouted, leading her squadron through the opening. Behind her, the strike team's capital ships pushed forward. Inside the fortress, the fighting became desperate. Zarathi defenders swarmed the Allied ships, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. Amy's fighters weaved through the internal structures, dodging weapons fire and searching for the power core. Contact, second level, Grid 47, called one of the Thracian pilots. I see the core. It's massive. Amy vectored her squadron toward the coordinates. The power core was a sphere of pure energy, held in place by gravitational containment fields. It pulsed with light, feeding power to the entire fortress. All ships concentrate fire on the containment generators, she ordered. Destroy them and the core will overload. The combined fire of 40 fighters struck the generators. Explosions rippled across the containment system. The energy sphere began to pulse erratically, growing unstable. Fall back, Daniel Price ordered. The core is going critical. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance. The strike team burned hard, racing away from the fortress as the power core's collapse accelerated. Behind them, Zarathi ships tried to contain the overload, but it was too late. The core reached critical mass and exploded. The blast wave caught 2 of the strike team's ships, vaporizing them instantly. The fortress came apart, massive sections breaking free and tumbling through space. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as ammunition stores and fuel tanks detonated. Fleet Admiral Bell watched the fortress die and felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. All ships pursue the retreating Zarathi forces. Don't let them regroup. The battle lasted 7 more hours. The Zarathi fought desperately, but they had been caught off guard by the Alliance's speed and coordination. One by one, their ships were destroyed or disabled. By the time the firing stopped, only 12 Zarathi vessels had escaped. The cost had been terrible. 38 human ships destroyed, thousands of soldiers dead. The Velkari had lost 41 vessels, the Thracians 33. Captain Nicole Wright had died when her ship, the Defiance, sacrificed itself to destroy a Zarathi dreadnought. She had rammed her vessel into the enemy ship's reactor core, buying time for Allied forces to retreat from an ambush. Major Chris Bennett survived the battle but lost half his Marines. He stood in the wreckage of a Zarathi ship, collecting data from their computers. The intelligence would help track down the remaining Zarathi forces, but it felt like small compensation for all the deaths. President Carter addressed the 3 Allied species from Earth, her face drawn with exhaustion. Today we won a great victory, but we paid a terrible price. Thousands of humans, Velkari, and Thracians died stopping the Zarathi threat. We must honor their sacrifice by ensuring this alliance survives beyond this war. Ambassador Richard Cole worked tirelessly over the following weeks to formalize the alliance into a lasting treaty. The negotiations were difficult, filled with mistrust and old grudges. But slowly, painfully, the 3 species found common ground.